So there's going to be a climate event, so a climate change event that's going to be, it's like a town hall kind of thing that's going to be happening apparently on MSNBC. And it's going to be hosted by a couple of their hosts. I think it's Chris Hayes and Ali Velshi, I believe, are going to host. And apparently Bernie Sanders is the only person that's going to be attending this event. In fact, both Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden, who are the other two frontrunners with Bernie Sanders, they're actually turning down the event. Now, there's a little bit more detail into why they're not going to the event. So I'm going to read that for you guys in an article here. But that's definitely an interesting thing to see that there's actually candidates that are turning down going to an event like that, which is really, really important. I mean, that's a big time thing. The issue is obviously really important, as all of you guys know, as progressives know. So let me just get into the details here. So the title of the article is it's from theguardian.com. The title is Sanders to attend latest climate forum while Biden and Warren pass. So let's read the body of the article here. It says former Vice President Joe Biden and the Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, leading candidates for the Democratic presidential nomination, will miss an MSNBC forum on the climate crisis to be held in Washington later this week. The live-streamed event at Georgetown University, which will include hour-long interviews with presidential contenders on Thursday and Friday, is aimed at students and timed to align with global climate strikes inspired by young people. The California Senator Kamala Harris, former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke, and the Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar will also miss the event. The Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders will be interviewed on Thursday. One Republican challenger to Donald Trump, former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld, will also appear. So not only... I mean, check out the irony of that. There's actually a Republican that's challenging Donald Trump who's attending this event, but Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, no mas. They have no time for that shit. They can't do that because, I don't know, they got some, so I'm going to get into the details of that. But the fact that a Republican is able to attend this event, showing that he actually apparently cares about the climate crisis and, climate change and global warming more than other Democrats do. It says organizers said most candidates who declined cited scheduling conflicts in the early voting state of Iowa, including for an LGBTQ forum in Cedar Rapids on Friday. Warren had prior commitments for that forum and a town hall, a spokeswoman said, adding that the senator plans to talk about the climate crisis at an Iowa campaign stop. It says none of the other campaigns responded to requests for comment. So, listen, when it comes to attending like an LGBTQ forum instead, now maybe they committed to that forum before this forum, but it's possible. I don't know the details. But, I mean, in the United States, not just the United States, the world, honestly, I don't want to. I'm not saying that that the issue of LGBTQ rights is not important. That's not my argument or what I'm trying to say at all. What I'm saying, however, though, is that the climate crisis is a literal climate crisis. This is something that is affecting all of our lives. It's something that's going to affect everybody's lives. It's going to affect the life of myself and my children and my grandchildren, along with all you guys too. Especially all of us millennials who obviously are going to be, are going to have to go through all this. It's already getting bad as it is right now, the climate crisis, and it's called the climate crisis for a reason. And the fact that people want to go to LGBTQ events instead of a climate crisis event that's crazy. I don't know. To me, that's just totally weird. I mean, we already have gay marriage in this country, so why are you going to an LGBTQ event over an event that's going to literally affect the lives of billions of people? Not just in America, all over the world. So that's totally strange to me. I don't know. Maybe it's not strange to them, but that's totally strange to myself and many other progressives. Continuing on here, it says the MSNBC event is the second climate-focused discussion with presidential candidates this month, following a 7-hour CNN town hall. It will not be aired on the network in full, a factor which may have contributed to candidates declining. One person familiar with the MSNBC event said it seemed candidates felt that they had quote, checked the box on climate by appearing at the CNN event. Okay, I mean, you can talk about climate multiple times. You don't have to just do it at one event. I mean, honestly, you should be focusing on it a lot more if you're any candidate, really. I mean, it doesn't mean just because you already went to an event that doesn't mean you should go to any more events at all. But okay. It says Stephen O'Hanlon, a spokesman for the Sunrise Movement, said the youth-led activist group understands why some candidates could not attend this MSNBC event. The CNN climate crisis town hall forced all the candidates to put forward serious plans to tackle the climate crisis and answer questions from voters on them. O'Hanlon said that was historic. So, like, there's an issue that's going on with there's people that are taking issue with the Sunrise Movement, which is a group that focuses on climate change. And while they were always kind of good at like calling out Democratic politicians, but a while back, and then I may have mentioned it on a couple segments before, but they went in, protested with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez outside of Nancy Pelosi's office, and then they went and confronted Dianne Feinstein and stuff like that. That pissed off a lot of corporate Democrats and a lot of Democratic loyalists, but they did that, and it was very, very good. But then all of a sudden now it seems like they're going and they're kind of like they're supporting like other candidates like bullshit climate platforms, which are terrible, whereas and pretending like they're the same as Bernie Sanders, whereas like Bernie Sanders, honestly, he has the best climate platform and the most comprehensive one, while everybody else is just kind of like, tinkering on the edges, And it seems like they're pretending as if everybody's so focused on climate change. Like, no, not really. That's not true at all. So, I mean, I even said on another episode in one of my segments how Elizabeth Warren is pushing for like a green new military deal or something, where she's talking about the military is very much involved in the climate change and global warming, and we need to work with the Pentagon to fix this issue. Like, it's like it totally seems like an attempt to like suck up to the military industrial complex on her part. And considering the fact that she has voted for at least for one of Donald Trump's military budgets to expand his already bloated military budget, that says a lot about where Elizabeth Warren is when it comes to her priorities. And the fact that she's not attending this event, this climate change event or forum, whatever, that says a lot about her as well. So it continues on here. It says, but Sierra Club's National Policy Director Ariel Hayes said, if tackling the climate crisis is truly the priority for these candidates that it needs to be, they should be taking advantage of this opportunity to share their vision with the world. Pete Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, will appear on MSNBC and in Iowa. He will be interviewed at the Climate Forum on Friday morning before appearing at the LGBTQ forum that evening. So I don't really understand what they're saying there. I guess he's attending the event too. But he's going to the LGBTQ event as well. Okay, so I mean, I guess you can credit Pete Buttigieg for that. At least he's committing to both. So that's good. All the other candidates couldn't do that apparently. The last part of the segment here says Mira Corinha, a co-founder of the newsletter Our Daily Planet and a planner of the MSNBC event, said she was disappointed candidates would miss an opportunity to talk with students. Polls show young Americans are more engaged on global warming than other adults. Yeah, that's definitely not surprising. So, obviously this is a big deal. This is not something that should be taken lightly. It's very, very unfortunate that there are candidates out there that are totally neglecting this and acting like, we already did an event for CNN, so we don't need to do it for MSNBC. But Bernie Sanders is totally willing to do it. And look at this. Look at the fact that Bernie Sanders is happily going on MSNBC to do this event. MSNBC is a channel that constantly not only ignores Bernie Sanders' existence in the polls and the fact that he gets huge crowds all the time, but he gets attacked by a lot of the hosts. He gets attacked by the likes of Joy Reid and all the contributors that come on there. They've had guests on there that say that, Bernie Sanders makes my skin crawl and all that shit. Like, they just constantly bashing him and smearing him and all that stuff. We've covered it multiple times. I've seen it on Twitter a lot, covered by a lot of people posting video segments where they're smearing him. It's just too much to even get into. It's so much you can barely even keep track of it. But Bernie Sanders is still doing it. And that shows a big guts, a very gutsiness on his part. The fact that he's, willing to go on a channel that constantly goes after him and smears him, let alone the media in general. But that's a different story. But he's willing to do that, and because he wants to talk about an issue that he knows is a big issue. It's a big problem, and he's an older person. He's not going to have to deal with climate change. Who knows? He could drop dead in 10 years for all we know, Poor guy. He's working as much as he's working his ass off, at age 78, 79, whatever he is, who knows, But, for those of you that are like, okay, well, maybe Bernie Sanders is an opportunistic asshole and he doesn't really care about climate change and he's only doing this because he knows it's going to get him votes. Bernie Sanders was talking about this issue all the way back in 1989 when he was running for the mayor of Burlington, Vermont as a socialist. He was running as a socialist, and he actually was talking about it to the media. He was appearing on channels like C-SPAN, where probably which are probably the only kind of channels that were letting him on, because every other national media, mainstream media, didn't want to talk about the issues that Bernie Sanders was talking about and covering, and wanting to be covered by the media. So he had to voice his opinions about it, so people would actually talk about it. So I want to play this video here. It's about a minute-long clip of him appearing on C-SPAN, talking about his mayoral run in Vermont, and I just wanted to play this clip for you guys where he calls out the media for not talking about climate change more, and how the role of the media, the conglomerates and stuff taking over, big corporations taking over the media, takes away from the opportunity for those kind of topics to be discussed. So check out this clip, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
I think, and this is an important point that I want to reiterate, you are not going to have serious discussion of the issues facing this country. You are not going to be able to educate our population. And I have to say that in my view, the American people are significantly less politically conscious and understanding of what goes around them than most of the people around the world. And one of the reasons is the collapse of the media in terms of allowing serious people with different points of view to go forward and debate the real issues of our time, or even to bring on the television set. Now, for example, we face, as all people know, an ecological crisis in our time, whether it's acid rain, the destruction of the ozone layer, the greenhouse effect. One would think that the CBSs and the NBCs of the world will be doing prime-time specials on these programs, having different scientists talking about the issues, involving people in understanding what's going on in terms of our planet. They don't. The function of television is to make as much money as possible for the owners of the television stations and for those people who advertise the 30-second ads on television. So I would say that we're not going to bring about serious political change in this country until we deal with the media, which more and more is being swallowed up by large conglomerates. Very important issue.
So look at that. That's something that Bernie Sanders is talking about, although in 1989. That's how many years ago? 30 years ago. 30 years ago he was talking about this stuff. And I got this from an article that was posted in March of this year, so roughly about 7 months ago. But I just thought that was relevant to point that out, that he was focusing on this issue. And if you guys want to check it out, this is the full interview. Want to check it out on C-SPAN? It's going to be in the videos in the article I'm going to post for you guys in the description box, if you guys want to check that out. Now, you guys might say, in response to this, oh, okay, well, big deal. He's just talking about one issue. Bernie is a one-issue candidate. He only cares about certain things. He doesn't care about the serious issues. And he's still an opportunist because he just talks about things when people want to hear it. Okay, well, why don't you check out this? So I'm going to post this graphic for you guys up on the screen, and then here I'll read it for you guys that can't see it. This is an article from the Daily Beast titled "Mayor Bernie Sanders Created an 80s Trans Mecca in Burlington." And then the subheadline says, when it was widely unpopular politically, Sanders backed a pride parade. In the LGBT community, word got out. Burlington was a place trans Americans could be safe. So what am I trying to say in this regard? I'm saying that Bernie Sanders does things and says things when they're not necessarily popular, not necessarily wanted, by a large swath of Americans. He's pushing for things when they are right, when it's the right thing to do, and things that people are demanding of him. So in this case, in his hometown of Burlington, Vermont, when he's mayor, he's pushing for trans parades, LGBT parades and stuff, creating a trans mecca. I mean, who's ever heard of that? A trans mecca? I didn't even, until I heard this, I didn't even know stuff like this was even considered a thing. I didn't know that, there was anybody out there that was so pro-trans and so pro-LGBT that they went out there and just, made it made a specific city or town or state so comfortable for those people, for those people that are discriminated against. And this was all the way in the 80s. So just like he's talking about, climate change in the 80s, he was when people was ignoring it, he was doing trans, and LGBT events and pride parades and everything in the 80s. So Bernie he just didn't give a fuck. He was just like, okay, fuck everybody else that ignores these issues. Fuck everybody else that doesn't give a shit, that doesn't want to focus on serious things. I'm going to focus on them, and I'm going to make sure that they're going to come to the limelight, and everybody's going to, everybody's going to know about it, and everybody's going to, make them a serious issue. So what he did is he forced people to know that these are serious issues that are happening in the country, and the people that are not focusing on it are just out of touch, and they obviously don't know what's going on in the world, or let alone in the country too. And Bernie Sanders shows that he's able to step up to the plate and make sure that people know what's going on. And if he needs to stick his neck out there and maybe come off as politically, become a political liability, then so be it. He'll do it. If he has to go out there, whether it's going to win him a race or not, he's going to go out there and advocate for things that people want. And obviously there was a big trans community back in the 80s in Burlington, Vermont that wanted him to do this, and he did it. And that's what a populist does. A populist pushes for policies that are popular. You don't go out there and say, oh, I'm going to push for something that, people fucking hate. No, you're going to go out there and push for things that the people are demanding of you to do. They're demanding it from you, and you're doing it. You're going with the will of the people. You're accepting the will of the people, and you're accepting them, accepting the demands that they make of you, of your, of their public figures. Their politicians that serve them, that have to serve a constituency. He's happy to go out there and perfectly represent them and do what they ask of him. And that's what Bernie Sanders is now. That's what Bernie Sanders was then, and that's what Bernie Sanders is going to be when and if he becomes president of the United States.